All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Great to have you on the number one show on innovative teamwork. So that's whoever brought you here, however you got here, just be sure to thank that person. To my regular listeners, you guys are probably tired of hearing me say this at this point, but I am not tired of saying it. And I'm going to continue to remind you, podmatch.com. Thank you guys very much for making my show again a show that has multiple guests, because here we are again with another gem of a person. I'm just gonna let you guys know right now, because I myself am in the fitness industry like she is. If you are a mother and you're making an excuse for not getting your ass up and working out, if you are any woman out there that says they're quote unquote busy, we're not gonna do this. Anybody, period, that is making excuses or using your kids as an excuse to not work out, I hope you tune in. You better tune in. All of those excuses better be removed by the end of today's episode, because this next guest has five kids and has this mindset that will absolutely blow your mind. So with all that, before I make the intro too long, Miss Tabatha Thorell, welcome to the Move Swiftly podcast. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much, Aswand. I'm honored to be here. And yeah, what an intro. I don't know if I can live up, but I'm going to do my very best.
Yes, I mean, let's just jump into it, because it was what, now 4 years, around 4 years ago, I believe. And like I said, I've been researching you. I've been, tuning into a lot of your work throughout the day. You were going through a lot of difficult things. You were going through a situation where you are a fitness trainer. You were trying to invest. You were investing money in coaches. You were doing
Yep.
a lot of things, and you weren't seeing a turnover. And one
Right.
of the things that you had mentioned throughout, multiple shows, is that you had to change your money mindset. You had to actually flip the switch in your mind and start to say to yourself, you do deserve these things. I mean, there was one point where I believe you were talking about a bag or something like that, and you said, "Look, if that bag is $1,000, damn it, you deserve it." So
Yep.
let's start there. Let's talk a little bit about your background, where you came from, and what got you to the point where you have such a just a mindset that is clearly communicated through. I mean, again, we're total strangers at this point.
Right.
That's clearly communicated when someone first meets you.
Yeah, so my background is, I grew up in a rural area. I'm the youngest of five. My dad, I mean, he was one of the hardest working people I knew. He was gone before I was up, and he barely came home before I went to bed.
Yes.
And that was predominantly because my mom had an autoimmune disease, and then my sister had a mental illness. And so the medical bills were just nonstop. And
Mm-hmm.
if any of your listeners have had that, it is overwhelming, not just financially, but emotionally, because
Yeah.
my parents were so in love. I mean, I grew up and they would show affection in front of us, very loving, but my dad was so stressed out that he was not always present when he was there. And
Yeah.
so I knew that no matter what happened in life, I wanted to marry somebody who was present in our kids' lives. Family was a big thing to me. I always wanted to be a mom, but I always wanted to have, I thought, a career, right? Because back then that you didn't have like a mission or a passion. It was you wanted a career. But I knew I wanted to be present in my kid's life. And so those things were very embedded in me. And like I said, my mom was super nurturing, even though she was ill a lot. So
Yeah.
like I had an amazing childhood, even with all the trauma of
Mhm.
and illness and scarcity. Like I still had an amazing childhood. So as I got older, I just looked for things, not always intentionally, but like I looked for things like, okay, if I want this, I have to work for it. Like I have to hustle. I have to be an entrepreneur. Like no one's going to hire a 12-year-old. So like I'm going to have to sell lemonade candy. I remember I cleaned houses and really just kept this older lady company because her house is already cleaned. But like, I'd go over there and I'd sit with her and I talked with her and she paid me. And I was like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Now I can buy this mini fridge for my room or this TV that I thought was so awesome. But it taught me to have a goal and to
Yeah.
work for it. And those were things that weren't taught to me by a mentor. It wasn't like I had an amazing teacher or a coach that just like really affected my life. It was just, I did it and I got the result. And so I became a very results driven person along the way. With that came expectations, and I need to be better and I need to be perfect, and all the things wrapped up in that. But there
Mhm.
was definitely good in that because I knew if I just did those things, I could reap those rewards. And so that was kind of like my background. And I had a lot of negative views of what wealthy meant
Mhm.
and money and like what I could actually obtain. Like some
Yeah.
things were just like, way far out of it. But that was okay, because my journey to now was like, God was going to put people in my life to help break those. And
Yeah.
so it was okay that I had them. But now, as an adult that I've seen the other things, now it's my responsibility to
Mhm.
show other people those.
Yes, and I definitely can resonate with you. So from eighth grade all the way to my freshman year in college, my father was on dialysis. You know, he had the kidney, he had the
Yes.
his kidney, and he was able to get the transplant, God willing. But that stress that you're talking about in
Mhm.
terms of, and we see it as kids, right? We see it and we just think it's a norm. But as I grew up, I realized that's my mother's husband. That's the partner. And imagine if you were in that situation and you had
Yes.
to, pay for college tuition and do all that pressure. Just imagine how difficult that would be for any adult. And that's so important that, the earlier you young people can get a hold of that, the less grudges you may have, the more
Yes.
selfless you become and not so selfish about what it is you want to do. And that's kind of really where I wanted to go to next, because again, I'm a fitness guy.
Yep.
Been in the fitness world as well. And
Yep.
when you see people come in and you're helping them reach their goals, that was
Uh-huh.
something you did for years as well. So can you kind of speak on, because a lot of times we as trainers, we get like a bad rap, sometimes there's not too many people who come to see us and, I'm coming to the gym. I'm not coming to the gym. You get a lot of these people that come in and out. So just kind of speak on a little bit about your time as a fitness instructor. Are you still doing it or?
So I haven't done it for a couple years. After my fifth baby and
Right.
multiple businesses, I was like, okay, I'm out. Like I
Yeah.
can't, I still love it. I still have a passion for it. When I see people in the gym and people come to me for advice, I'm like, yeah, sure, great.
Right.
When I started, it's funny because I went to college because that's what they told you to do to get a good job, right?
I,
But I
I'm telling
went,
you.
I know,
I
I
felt
know.
it. Trust me.
Yeah,
We're gonna address that in a second, because
yeah. And
when it
so,
comes to money mindset and that cost thing, but listen, we'll talk about that in a second. Go
yes.
ahead.
And my parents weren't going to pay for it. So I
Yeah,
had to learn. I mean, I had to fill out my own FAFSA forms. I remember thinking like,
really.
gosh, nobody else has to do this. I have to do this, right? And
Right.
I just hustled into the thing. But I got a college degree.
Yeah.
And I remember I wasn't sure after my bachelor's because I got like a pre-counseling degree. I
Mhm.
knew that I wanted to help marriages and families stay strong. So whether I was like marriage
Wow.
counseling or family counseling, I just always had this passion to keep the family unit together. And I think that's partly because when my mom was sick, we all compartmentalized it different. We all processed it differently. And
Mhm.
so like my brother would be alone, like he'd go play by himself, and my older
Right.
siblings would do their things. And so even though we were a really close family, I just wanted to help other families in those
Right.
trauma times, right? So I got this degree, and I will never forget the day I walked into my advisor's office and I said, "Hey, okay, I want to like help families and marriages, and like I'm so excited. What's the next step?" And most of the time you get your master's or your doctorate, depending on what you want to
Yeah,
do. And she
especially
was
with
like,
counseling. I think even
yes.
a certification or something like that with that.
Yes, yep, you have to get a minimum of a master's. If you want to do anything and have your own practice, you have to get a doctorate. And so that's
Right.
another 4 years. And I'm like, oh gosh, darn it, like I have all these loans already. But
Yeah.
like I wanted to help people. I just knew that. But I
Mhm.
also knew I needed to make money because remember, I'm coming from scarcity. So like I'm very money conscious.
Mhm.
And she said, "Hey, that's awesome. Just want to let you know that most of the time, by the time couples come to us as counselors and therapists and stuff, they still get a divorce." And I
Mm.
was like, well, those results suck. Like, I'm not going to do it if I'm not going to help them. So I
Mhm.
was like, no, thank you. I'm not going to school for even another 2 years and spending who knows how much money,
Right.
to not help people. And
Exactly.
I knew that with the degree I had was like health and human services, which I couldn't do. Like I interned for that and it just broke my heart. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
And human resources was another one I could have, like business corporate world. And I just didn't love that. And I was like, oh gosh, darn, I
Mhm.
was dating my high school sweetheart at the time. We knew we were going to get married. We'd already started investing in real estate. So I was like, okay. He knew that he would most likely farm his family farm. And
Mhm.
so we got married, we came back here, and a job opportunity happened at my local YMCA. And
Mhm.
I always had a passion for fitness, but I don't know, I just never saw it as a career, I was just like,
Right.
okay. So I did that and I just loved it. And I just loved to help people, women just come like just be confident in their body and like follow through and do what they say and all that stuff. And I just loved group coaching. I loved events. I loved, inspiring people, motivating people. And it just was like the first thing that led me to the next thing, which was a direct selling company, which I never thought I'd be a part of. I hated sales, like hated them,
Yeah.
avoided shoe salesmen like the plague. Like, I just hated
Right.
sales.
Right.
But it developed a skill set.
Mhm.
It brought me into the world of leadership and personal development. And I'll be honest, Aswan, like that was the first time that I felt a home. I
Yeah.
was listening to like Tony Robbins, John
Yeah.
Maxwell, and I was like, these are my people. Like I
Yeah.
love this. I just
I've
loved it.
which one was it? Which MLM was it?
Advocare. So it was a
Ah,
supplement.
yes, yes. I know exactly
Yep.
what advocate. I know
Yep.
exactly that
Yep.
one. That's
Yeah. And so because we were advancing so fast in the company, like they sent us to these leadership retreats and that's what I fell in love with.
hmm
I loved the fitness stuff. I love nutrition.
hmm
I would help coach people, but I mean, I loved getting into someone's mind. And
hmm
so I just really started researching like the mind and mindset and how to switch beliefs. And I'm like, you can do this?
hmm
Like, this is amazing. Like, I didn't even know. And I was
Yes.
in kind of like the psychology world. Cause remember, like
Yeah.
my degree was like psychology, pre-counseling, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't that I had like no exposure, but
Right.
they definitely don't teach you that in college,
No.
And so I just fell in love with it and just yeah, I switched a whole business model,
hmm
launched a fitness business. And actually, that was like short lived because everything pulled me to mindset. Like everything was always like, how can I get these people to just like switch so they actually are motivated to do the thing? And I just still to this day, even with what we do in real estate, like I'm constantly like, how can I help that person do the right thing so they follow through and get the result that they want, not
hmm
what I want. It's not about me. It's not about manipulating them. It's like they said they want this.
Right.
So it's my job as a coach, trainer, my responsibility with my skill set to how can I help bring that out in them? Yes, they are owning their, what they do, but
Right.
I have to own my skill set too and say if they didn't take action, even in fitness, even personal trainers, like your listeners might like to hear this because we like to blame it all on the person, right? The client, like they're lazy, they're this, they're that. What aren't you doing as a trainer that makes them want to show up early, that makes them want to do that 12 burpee, that makes them want to that? Because that was one of my skill sets when I was motivating people. They
hmm
were doing the thing.
Right.
And they were like, I'm so glad. Like, and they would kept showing up. Like, I don't know why I keep showing up. It's because of how I made them feel about it,
Yes.
not the actual task of it. Does that make
Right.
sense? So
Yes.
it's always about that, like how I make that person feel. And was I too direct? Because as trainers, sometimes we can just be like, instructors and trainers, we can just be like, you just do it 5 more. But
Yeah.
it's like I knew my audience.
hmm
Like, so it was women. So I'd be like, you want to, fit into those skinny jeans. You want to be sexy for your husband. You want
hmm
to play with your kids. Like, you're going to do those 10 more. And that's what sparked it. And that was what kept them wanting to come back.
Yes, and there's a couple things that you listeners and that you really really have to unpack when it comes to that. Is she was going down the road of going through the school system, but inside, what was burning on the inside. And this is what I try to convince or convey to a lot of you college kids and you families that decide to just send your kids to whatever school. What's burning on the inside of a person, especially a college age kid,
Yep.
is what ultimately is going to drive them. Listen to that voice that's burning on the inside. I love how you started it and you said you talked to someone and said, wait, the divorce rates are high. Well, what the hell are we doing? Why am I
Yeah.
going into an industry because the salary might be comfortable? I'm going to pay
Yeah.
for school. I'm going to end up paying probably more in school, student loans, paying it off to watch a bunch of the people that I want to help get divorced. Why pursue this? And you listen to that voice and
Yeah.
every step along the way, again, you said it in so many words. It wasn't advocate necessarily as much as
No.
it was the actual personal development, the Tony Robbins, the Dean Grazians, all of these people who
Yep.
are going to make it so you help people in a certain way. And man, I resonate with that in so many ways. But I do know that this business is a challenge. It is hard finding people and it is hard getting people to break, years and years and years of habits and getting them to get from the excuses and remove themselves from these mental blocks, the stubbornness that so many people
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
how have you managed that challenge? Because I know it's a huge one, especially with you ladies. All right. Again, I was a trainer. I know how it works. Every other word is an excuse. Well, I'm
Yep.
pregnant, this, I'm that, the kid is here. So how do you, as someone that, clearly can show, how do you manage all of those rejections and those challenges that you come with?
Man, I mean, it's your own personal growth journey, honestly, because I am a very driven, I'm a very stubborn person.
Mhm.
When I learned my personality type and I learned other people's personality type and what inspires them and motivates them, and that's different. Like, so for you, like you said, like women can have excuses and men can have excuses of like why they didn't take that risk or whatever, or their ego's so big or whatever.
Yes.
So like with a woman in a guy, but like a woman, say you're trying to get a woman to work out.
Yeah.
You have to find out what motivates them. You have to find out what influences them. So like when I was pregnant, I was doing burpees. I was doing the thing. I had a healthy pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I mean, baby 4 and 5, especially baby 5, because I was holding baby 4 a lot, my hips really would go out. So that one at the later part of my pregnancy was probably the least I worked out because I just couldn't, because my hip kept popping out of place and that's not fun. So
No, I bet
but
it's.
until then, I was motivated because first of all, I knew what exercise did for my brain.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't just so soul focused on vanity. Like, yes, of course, I still wanted to not be a whale, like pregnant,
Right.
because I was chasing kids and stuff. And I still wanted to be sexy for my husband, even if I had this belly, right? So, I
Yes.
mean, I had those, but I know what exercise does for my mind. I know what it does for my hormone levels. And as women, guys, we've got to be aware of that
Yeah.
because I know, like, oh my gosh, my like progesterone is low right now with my cycle or whatever. I gotta have my endorphins on check. I gotta have my serotonin on check. I gotta have my
Mhm.
dopamine. So I know these things about myself. And so when I'm talking with a woman, I'm like, you're pregnant. So like if you're just all about like wanting to do yoga or stretching or making sure, like what's really her intention for wanting to work out or post
Mhm.
baby?
Yeah.
What's that intention? Because that's how you get them to do the thing. Like
Yeah.
when I coach someone in real estate, like you want to buy an income property. Okay, we're talking 200,000 plus, right? Especially now, that's a good chunk of change.
Mhm.
But if you just focus on the money and not about the results of that, meaning, okay, but if you have an influx of cash and you can compensate that, it doesn't matter if it's 200,000 or 2 million. If
Mhm.
you have somebody paying you for it, it's a resource. It's
Right.
not, it's nothing. But
Right.
you have put so much emotion into that. And
Mhm.
same with women or men when they're going to work out, you've put so much emotion into your body and you've said, I hate my body. I
Mhm.
hate the way it looks. This is disgusting. Well, guess what? It's not that you hate your body because,
Mhm.
sweetheart, your body is just a mirror image of what your mind told your body to do.
Yeah.
So you need to start saying, you know what? I don't like my mind right now. So
Right.
I'm going to manage it and I'm going to switch it. And I'm going to look at this differently. I'm going to look at working out differently. I'm going to look at food differently. That's here. The
Yeah.
body has it's like collateral damage. It's just only showing what this thing here did. And
Right.
when I realized that, it was like, okay, even with money, it
Mhm.
wasn't that money was evil or bad or good or we didn't have it. It's
Yeah.
I was attaching to the money. And
Mhm.
when you realize that, you have your breakthrough because then nothing controls you. Food
Mhm.
doesn't control you, addiction doesn't control you, money doesn't control you, your
Mhm.
spouse doesn't control you, nothing. And when you have that kind of freedom,
Yeah.
it's game changer. I mean, hands down game changer.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you do mention that because a lot of times people would say things as an excuse, like money is the root of all evil. There's excuses of, oh, well, I don't have the time. But if you get to their pain point, if you get to what they're actually needing and what they actually are, what the result would be, then you start to break those patterns. I think Tony
Yes.
Robbins calls it breaking patterns. He does a thing like this, and then
Yep.
you move it like this. It's called breaking patterns. So
Yep.
for you listeners or even coaches, business owners that are struggling with getting your staff to be motivated, which is primarily a lot of the people that listen to the show, it's
Yeah.
about breaking their pattern, really getting to know your staff and what is it that they want with the money that you plan on giving them, and start to incorporate things that would start to break those actual patterns so it doesn't feel monotonous and they're actually going to work and doing what they feel like is purposeful, because
Right.
everybody here wants to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. It's a need. It's one of the human needs. It's actually another thing. I do a lot of Tony Robbins too, but one of the things he talks about is the need to feel significant, the need to feel
Yeah.
loved, all that kind of stuff. So, with all that, how were how I want to kind of dive into a lot of what you said in terms of how you want to help people and how that got you into real estate, and it wasn't just about the money. And
Yeah.
also, I believe you touched on coaching programs that you joined that did not work. Because what
Yeah.
I know about real estate is that it does take a lot of selling, it does take a lot of public speaking, it does take a lot of professional development. And you spent well over 5 figures on programs that you would not very happy about at all. So talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the process in your professional development and what went wrong, what went right. Just
Yeah.
kind of explain it and maybe save some people out there who
Yeah.
might be spending about 5 figures on certain people
Yeah.
and not getting the results. What should they be expecting? So,
Yeah. So there's a lot in that question. So the
mhm,
first one is I'll never forget the first time I spent money really for personal development other than a book, right? And it
right.
was going to a Tony Robbins seminar. And if anybody's ever been to a Tony Robbins seminar, they're not, they're a little bit more costly, right? Like
Which
they're
one
not
was it?
the same, right?
Which
Huh?
one was it? Which one was it?
Just UPW, just
Yeah,
as
that's
basic stuff,
I
five
went to
in
that one.
one, right?
Mhm.
And a friend of mine was like, I always wanted to go. And so I called her up and I said, hey, it was buy one, get one, free for a ticket. We're
Yeah.
going. And
Yes.
we could drive because it was in Dallas, which is about 10 hours from us. So I'm like, we're driving. And she's like,
That's
okay.
good.
So we
Yeah.
went. But it was still, I think with everything, it was still close to $1,000, right?
Right.
That was more than I'd ever spent before.
Hmm.
But I got so much from it. So I think, again, trust the process of like, you might not be able to buy like a 10K program right now, but just take that step of buying something that was more than $250, right? Like buy that $1,000 course, that $2,000 course. And then I came back from that. And a few years later, God was like, you need to start your own fitness business. And I kind of laughed and was like, that's funny because I don't have a business degree. And I
Yeah.
just like
Right.
working for
Mhm.
other people. Like, it wasn't that I worked for other people. We were still entrepreneurs, like in my husband's business and the real estate stuff. But like my fitness stuff was like predominantly like instructing for somebody else. I would do some boot camps myself, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't call it a business, right? Like that.
Yeah. It was
But
basically probably like this part-time at a gym and just the people
yes, it
you
was
could
just like
depend on the people
yeah,
around that
people
come in.
kind of knew me. I was really focused on the direct selling part of it. And
Mhm.
that was again somebody else's dream though, right?
Mhm.
Like it was the founder's dream.
Yeah.
And so when I launched it, like God was just like, you're doing this, come on. And so I
Mhm.
finally did. And I knew I needed to hire a coach. And it was $5,000. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's even more than Tony Robbins.
Mhm.
But it got me to work. Like
Mhm.
she gave me great insights on the program and I really loved her. But the marketing part wasn't real great. But I still like, I was like, I gotta earn this money back. It was like lighting a fire under my bottom. Like I was like, let's go, right?
Mhm.
So I was like able to do that. And then progressed a few years later. And I think I bought a few things in between then, but nothing that was like super significant.
Right.
And I remember it was right when COVID hit, actually. And
Mhm.
we all just didn't know what COVID was going to do. And I didn't really
Yeah.
care. I'll be honest. I didn't believe in the huff of COVID. I'm just be honest. Like
Right.
I was never a mask wearer. I'm sorry, get hate mail for that. But like because I knew the stress and anxiety of that was going to cause people to be sick more than the illness. It
Yeah.
was just so many studies behind that. It was crazy that nobody else believed it. But anyway, so we just were healthy and like I just did not let that fear and anxiety into my household. Again, it was a mindset thing. I was like, no, if
Was.
we get sick, I was pregnant, guys, and I got COVID and I was not scared for 1 minute. Like
Yeah.
I was like,
That's what I mean. It was talking to people like you who had it and got over it. And these were
yeah,
healthy people. And I was living a very healthy lifestyle that made
yeah,
me say, something's up with this thing. Because
yeah.
I mean, if you have the mind now, again, for the people that did lose loved ones,
There was, yes.
condolences. But I just, it came out of nowhere. And I just felt like when I spoke to someone like you who had it and you're walking around fine and you're okay, like when it first started happening, I thought it was something that people couldn't recover from. But then again, I have a
Right.
conversation with you or
Yeah.
some of the people that came into the gym and stuff. I'm like, you did have it and you're fine. You're walking around totally fine. That's when I realized, all right,
Yes.
there's some don't feel right here.
Right. Well, and then
Some-
they done studies with like the swine flu that happened a few years prior, and like way more people died, but
yeah,
nobody was talking about it. Anyway, so
exactly.
like COVID happened.
Yeah.
We didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I was
Mhm.
like, okay. And so I bought this coaching program because what I was struggling with my fitness business, it was a lot of personal connections. So all my marketing was organic and personal and referrals. And that will carry you to a point. That'll get you started. It's
Mhm.
not going to carry you to the seven-figure business I wanted. And so there was this guy, and he was a very good marketer. Let me just tell you, he was a
Yes.
very good marketer. And he had been in, like, I'm not going to give too much away because I don't like to tell people it is, just because he's had success with other people. And so you might be successful with him. So I don't want to ever sway people away from
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And well, hold on, let me just pause you there because that is actually a very important point. When you're hiring coaches and you're hiring professional development, this is so important for you to look within your own
Yes.
self and ask what you want to do. Like the coach I personally hired was a former basketball player, played professionally. If you look at his brand, you look at my brand, you're like, okay, that's the guy I see my future,
Yes.
but it takes some inner work. So
Yes.
whether that coach is for you, he's not a coach. I'm trusting he's not a coach for everybody. I can tell you that right now. But
Right.
it's
Yes.
important that when you're in this space of it, you need to hire professional development. So much of it is burning on the inside of what it is you need to do. And that's an important point to make. So I'm glad you threw that caveat
Yes.
in there as well.
Yes. So I never like to throw him under the bus because
Mhm.
I would hate for someone not to go with him that would have great results.
That
Okay.
would have
So
had a great result, right? Mhm.
but what I didn't like about it, okay, and I want to preface this very clearly because again, like you said, people will use excuses and it was the coach's program and oh, he
Yeah.
was a great marketer. He was a really sly marketer. He knew that. Like that was fine. And that was it's a gift for him. But what I didn't like was I joined the program and very clearly, like the first day, like I don't even think I consumed much content.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I think I did one call with one of his, not him, it was like one of his other coaches. I just knew it wasn't a fit. Like I
Mm-hmm.
knew like our energies weren't there. I was like, I just don't like that. Like, okay, and so I messaged him right away and I said, I'm happy to pay for our call. Like if you charge whatever for a call, like I didn't want to just get something for nothing. Like I'll happy pay for the call, but like, dude, I don't like this program. Like this is not a fit. You guys said this, but it's not really showing here. I'm just not good. It's just not good. I feel icky. They're like,
Right.
nope, sorry. Nope, sorry, you paid. It's this. Like they were just very like, and okay, I get that's a tactic.
Right.
And if you wanted to again motivate me to stay in the program, then there were things that they could have done differently to keep me motivated to do that. And they didn't. They were just very like, so
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like, okay, well, I got to do this because like I paid for it. So I mean, like I showed up for the calls and I did the thing. And then what actually motivated me was the fact that I paid 5 figures for this. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't anything that they taught because a lot of stuff they taught I was already doing. There was no like magic sauce. Half the time he would do trainings, he'd be laying in bed. Like I just thought it was very unprofessional.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what I needed at that time, again, there was other people that were in fantastic results.
Mm-hmm.
So but what motivated me, this is why I'm always grateful for that program because I took the leap. I paid the money. So it lit a fire. Again, notice, like even with the Tony Robbins thing, like I showed up. If anybody's been to a Tony Robbins event, it is like 40 hours, straight hours. I mean, it's crazy.
In freezing cold,
It's
actually,
freezing cold. But
a
I was
couple.
there. I barely peed. I was like, I'm getting every cent out of this thing. I'm like, you are firewalking
Yeah, did
twice.
you
Like, I mean,
firewalk?
it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, I wasn't going to miss nothing because
Yeah,
I spent that money there, right? The
exactly.
coaching program that I got for 5,000, I mean, I'm asking her questions. I'm getting every bit of it.
Yeah.
So even in that program, I still got every bit of it that I could. Even if I didn't like something, I still showed up. I still did the work. I made that money back. And it showed me what kind of coach I didn't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want this. Okay, that's going to help me be a coach. So this is like coaching university, right? And how much do you spend on college? 100K.
Yeah,
This was 10. So okay.
exactly.
And so that taught me just along the way. And every coaching program I've done, I've just had that mentality of like, this
Mhm.
isn't exactly how I would do it. I would probably change this. And this coaching program was like 25K. I'd probably be a little more inclusive or whatever, but I still took out of it something of value that I implemented like
Mhm.
right away to go and do it. there's no perfect coaching program out there. And there's no perfect like personality match to get you to do exactly what you want to do. Unless you can pay like $100K a year, maybe you might be able to find someone like that. But like on the lower level, if you're looking for someone to come and like be that bippity boppity boo and just like magic wand for like $1,000, it's not going to happen. And if you're what I call butthurt about it because it didn't do exactly what you thought it would do, you have to look and take ownership of yourself and be like, is the content good? Did I do it like they actually said it? Because even in all my coaching programs, I'm like, you know what? I didn't do that. I take ownership. Like I didn't do it that way. I was scared or I didn't have the resources or I wasn't resourceful or whatever. And I didn't do it like that. So that's on me.
Right.
And yes, did they make it look really fancy and nice and beautiful in the marketing and just seem all like a fairy tale? Of course they
Right.
did. But
Right.
that's our world we live in, and you have to like discern that. But you can't be pessimistic and say all marketers are shady. But you
Yeah.
can't be so in fairyland that like, oh, I only have to pay $97 and then I'm going to start making $1 million a year. Like, it's like you have to have expectations, but you have to manage those and know when you're coming in. Like you said, what are you bringing to the table? Because the person Tab is today is not that same person in 2020 that bought that program. So
Right.
maybe that person would have, taken, ran with it or whatever. And so those are things that we have to really look at with discernment when we're buying these high ticket prices. And
Right.
it's, don't look at it like they're scamming me or they're taking this or doing this. There are different tactics for different people to make you want to accomplish the reason why you bought that thing,
Yes.
right?
So, I mean, what you're describing is exactly what personal and professional development is. All right. And it's very, very important for you guys to get a hold of this. This is the game. All right. This is the game as a business owner. And if you don't make these investments in yourself, you will lose your staff. You won't know how to motivate them. You won't know how to be relatable to them. You won't know how to say, look, I got burnt. I've been burnt. I've made mistakes. And here's the guide. Here's how you push through these certain circumstances in which you felt like you made a mistake or you would have done things differently. And the question I actually have for you now is, how has going through that helped you as a wife, as a mother, and as an entrepreneur? How has it kind of helped you develop in your own world and the things that are obviously important to you?
So I'm really hard on myself. I think most entrepreneurs, we hold really high standards.
Yes, we
So
do.
when I made that AKA mistake or whatever, that investment, I was like ashamed. I was like, I didn't tell anybody. I mean, like I made the money back. So like financially for our family, it was okay. But like I felt that pressure and I was like, I was a little jaded. It took me a year and a half to buy another program
Mm-hmm.
because I just was like, and I just held this guilt. And so what it's taught me is to forgive myself every day, every
Oh
single
yes. Oh man,
day.
I got to address that point there because I mean, man, you hit the nail. So the Jets are sustained, sister.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
When people look at forgiveness, too often do we look at forgiveness and we think it's you forgiving another person.
yep,
When are we going to get to a place where we start looking and start to forgive yourself for the mistake you made? Be it that mistake be professionally, be it that mistake be personally, romantically, whatever it is, we are
yep,
human. We are all human. We make mistakes. We make mistakes. And again,
yes,
I'm just like you. I just recently put a book out and I saw like one capital, one of that was there, one typo. And I mean, luckily I was self-published, but I like saw one typo and I'm going crazy. I'm hitting my editor up. I'm like, this needs to be changed now. It's like,
yeah,
and I
yes,
went to YouTube, I watch other authors like, it's okay, Aswand. It's one typo. You're fine. Just switch
it's fine.
in the morning.
It's
So,
okay.
and I
It's okay.
forgave myself, and I was like, all right, I'm good. So that point, that is a great point that you made. So again, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah. So forgiving myself, and to that point, in forgiving myself, also forgiving other people, like forgiving that coach for
Yeah,
being a douchebag or
yeah,
whatever I was
yeah.
feeling.
Because
Okay. I'll
what
be
is it
honest.
gonna do? What is actually walking around with that bitterness?
Right. No, and that's why I don't
It's not
like
gonna help.
diss his name or
Yeah,
whatever. Now, if he was doing really shady stuff, like that was really hurting people, but it just didn't work for me. Right.
yeah,
So you have to, again, discern that. So,
yeah.
like forgiving him, forgiving my husband, forgiving my kids every single day, giving grace and mercy, but also for myself. and being like, Tab, it's okay. Cause that was a learning process. That was not a failure. That wasn't even a mistake. You were meant to go through that process because this is where you're supposed to be right now, and trusting that. And that's where my relationship with God is like so huge, because he's the one who tells me like, no, you're not a mistake. Yes, we do make mistakes. We sin, we do these things, and sometimes we don't think it through. But now you're going to discern this, or I'm going to let you sit on this, or do this, or learn from that, or just trusting that process. So forgiveness was a huge one. And then, like I said, I was a little jaded, so I had to let go of that. So I had to work through some stuff on that and be like, okay. And then when I bought my second, like probably biggest purchase of a coaching program, I was pregnant with baby number 5. Yes, 5. Because I just had baby number 4, and I didn't invest in this one program that I wanted because I was like, oh, I'm having a baby. But this other one, I was like, I'm going to have this baby. I need to get one. Like, I wanted to invest in myself. And so I did. And again, but it was that process of like forgiving myself if I didn't do it just perfect. I mean, I had 5 kids and like a newborn. So trusting the process, like, but I'm still supposed to take these steps, right? Like, I'm not just supposed to sit idle and not do anything because I can still enjoy my kids. I enjoyed every minute of their infancy and newborn stage. And I even co-authored a book during that time. And I still was able to be fully engaged. And so trusting that I could do that and not using words like, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, and this, I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping, but like just telling myself, like, I still need to take these steps. I need to take action forward, and they will come to fruition. Like, it will happen when we invest in our mind and ourselves. Like, it will come to fruition. We have to pivot, and we have to make sure that like we're really managing the mind, and we're going toward the sunset. We're going west on the sunset. We're not going east. So it's like sometimes you have to take a perspective shift and be like, okay, but if like you said, in your gut, like, I know I'm supposed to help families. Like, I just know it in my gut. Sometimes it's a way of like, if I help that family because I help the mom, or I help the couple stay together, or I help them invest in real estate, it doesn't matter. The family unit and those connections and communications with each other, and removing offense in a family, and removing the unforgiveness of a family. I know, like, I'm called to do that. And so, and I'm meant to use my voice. And so I need to perfect that craft. So you said you have a lot of like business owners with like, employees. So you're a CEO. You might be just a manager, but like when you look at that position as a CEO, and you look at your employees, you have to look at your employees as these people that have to uplift the boat, right? Like, rising tides raise the boat. And so if you don't motivate them to want in on the vision, and here's the thing, here's just a little hack for your audience that will serve them if you have any employees, or and honestly, even with your kids, okay? Because you're leading a family if you're a parent, right?
Yeah.
If you make them feel seen, heard, and loved, meaning, and yes, your employees, you can love them. You know what love is? Like, it's the way that God loves the church. It's unconditional. It's even when they do wrong things. Now, does that mean that they get to steal from you? No, it doesn't. But when you make them feel seen, meaning you appreciate them, you tell them, oh my gosh, you did a great job yesterday, even if it was the front desk person, like your smile was so beaming, right? You make them feel heard. If they have concerns with their position, or if they need time off, or with another employee, you make them feel heard. You communicate with them, and you make them feel loved because you're there. You listen, you know if they have kids, if they have a spouse, that makes people feel loved. And when they're connected to you, they don't want to leave. They don't want to steal. They don't want to talk about and have a bad environment. They want in on that vision, no matter how small your business is, no matter how, like, if it's just one employee. Like, right now, I mean, we have like contractors and stuff, but like my nanny, I would say, is my number one employee, because
And
she's helped me taking care of my kids, and she helps keep my house in order. So I am always like, you do such a great job. Thank you so much. Like, can you do this? Like, I ask her to do things. I don't just tell her to do things. Even though she's my employee, I'm still like, hey, can you do this? I appreciate it so much.
Empathy,
And she's a human being. And that's the way that you can really build an organization of people that know, like, and trust you, and want to build this vision that you have.
Yes, and I think it's very important that we got to make sure. I want to give you the opportunity to mention how supportive your husband has been throughout this process,
Yeah.
because as you've mentioned, you have developed a strong walk of faith. You are a believer. You understand
Yeah.
the importance of a relationship with Jesus Christ. And too often now is marriage not cool, especially amongst a lot of guys. Too often now do we think it was just the other day where Harrison Buckner, he almost got scolded just for saying something about what a woman's role in being a wife and a mother, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
mentioning it as it's like we're so far off the, the what it is supposed to be, which is marriage first, again, house, then the kids. We're so far off from that. So please just speak on how supportive your husband has been throughout this process. So hopefully we inspire more people to step up like he did and be husbands before they become
Yes.
fathers, be husbands before they
Yes.
live with someone, and actually do it the right way. Because I'm truly a believer in that. I'm a little old fashioned. I know a lot of people out
Yeah.
there, but
But
I,
I hate that
I'm a,
I hate that people say it's old fashioned. Because here's
I,
the thing,
I mean,
it just is. And
it's the
like I
way
said,
it's supposed to be, right?
it's supposed to be. And if you look at it through the times, the people who have solid marriages. Now, this is not a marriage of dictatorship where the husband rules the home and the wife is just this
Partnership.
little
It's a
homemaker, passive
partnership, right?
aggressive. That is not what I'm talking about, people. Like, do you think that I'm passive aggressive? No. But my
Absolutely.
husband is the leader of our home, and I'm totally fine with that. That
Right,
does not degrade me. That does not like make me feel less than a woman.
right.
But now, if you ask my girls, they say, like, Mom, no, you are, because I'm more chatty. Like, I'm just louder, right?
That's
But
just the outside looking at it, but when they get beneath the surface, I
exactly.
mean,
And
I'm looking at it like from his perspective. I mean, that's fine, and it's five girls, no?
yeah, five
Yes,
girls.
five
Yes.
girls. So he didn't get one
Yes.
boy, and then he's
Yeah.
still
No,
about the business.
we just
Yeah,
got
so
all girls,
that's
right?
right.
And
That's
so
six women,
it's,
guys, that he's living with. So I'm just putting it out
I know, right? And we have like two teenagers, so it's
there.
crazy. But but what it does is it establishes order, really. And like when my husband, I mean, we live here in our community because my husband, like, that's where his job is.
Yes.
And I could be this like new age woman that's like, no, I will not let me tell a man what it, blah, 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 whatever.
Mhm.
I love him.
Yes.
This makes him happy. I get to work on me to help what makes me happy. And he's providing, he's doing what he thinks is best for the family. And we're united on that. And I truly believe that it's God, your relationship with God, but
Yes.
then it's you and your spouse.
Come on
Okay.
now. Take him to
Like,
church again.
I'm
Say
going
it
to preach,
again.
I'm
Say
going
it.
to preach this,
Come
right?
on. Hands up. The pup.
Here is why. And I'm going to tell you some of this
Right.
because promiscuity is rampant right now.
Yes.
Okay, when you're married, when your husband is unified with you and you make a vow to them and you love them, he looks at you differently. He looks at your body, your vulnerable body, like when you're together, differently. He's not going to go out to his guy friends and be like, "Oh, she had cellulite. Oh my gosh, her boobs weren't up," or whatever, excuse me if it's family show, but like they're not going to talk about that because you're the wife, and the wife isn't going to go and be like, he's a deadbeat, he's not providing. You have
Yeah.
unified each other. But
Mhm.
when you don't have that, when it's just like happenstance,
Yeah.
you expose yourself to humiliation, you expose yourself to embarrassment, you expose yourself to everything that as a woman
Hmm.
horrifies us,
Yeah.
right? And like
Try to avoid. Right. That you try to
as a
avoid.
man, if you are intimate with a girl who
Mhm.
is not like connected with you, okay, let's be honest, you're a guy. What's the number one thing that can just take you to your knees? It's
Mhm.
someone saying that you didn't perform or that you're
And
worthless
then
there.
just that's what I'm saying. The idea of that. Now I know how I grew up with an older sister, so I know how women talk. You don't
Yep.
perform in the bedroom, and this was always my mindset when I was going through
Yeah.
it. If I don't perform in the bedroom, somebody else gonna know about it. So you better believe when it became time, I had to make
Right.
sure I was handling my business because
Right.
I know how women talk. I know
Right.
exactly how that gets around. So I was
And men do the same thing. But when you're married, when you take
yes.
that vow and
Mhm.
you really put your heart and soul and vulnerability, you're less like, I'm not saying there aren't people that still might do that, but you are less likely, you are connected to them in a
Yeah.
different way. So that's why like marriage is not, when people say like, stay a virgin or whatever, it's not like, it's not a punishment. It's
Right.
like protecting you
And
from
that's the way it
everything.
gets.
I didn't realize that growing up at all. I thought it was like, God's a fun hater or whatever. And a lot of people are like, oh, you were only with one man. I'm like, yeah, but we
Gets
learned
communicated
and
like you're out
developed.
of, right, yeah.
Exactly. And like we learned those things because you'll soon learn, like whether you are married or just life partners with somebody or whatever they say these days, I don't know. But
Right.
like age happens.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff doesn't work sometimes. Like things sag. Like it just is where that's just what it
Right,
is.
right,
And if
right.
you don't have that intimacy, and that's where marriage is, it's the intimacy.
Yeah.
So fall in love with falling in love with that, because your vulnerability, everything that you desire as a woman, as a man, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the respect that you want, that ego, that all that stuff, that providing, and for a woman, that delicacy, that intimacy, everything that you desire is
Mm-hmm.
in that relationship. And now, again, nowadays it's so easy to get a divorce. So you can't go into, like, you literally have to look at it like, no, like we have to work on this together. But we've done that. Like we've done the work on ourselves.
Yeah.
Because when I got to a point where I felt like I was talking at my husband and
Mm-hmm.
I was being the loud, annoying voice, or I was being like they call like a thermometer, like up and down all over,
Mm-hmm.
I had to work on me, and I had to come to the end of my rope and go to Jesus and be like, I don't want to be this horrific woman. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be this naggy woman. I want my husband, when I die, to say she was the most loving, kind, passionate, beautiful soul. I'm devastated with this. Not like,
Right.
oh, good riddance. Like, okay, yeah, she
Yeah.
she was fun, but less, whatever. I
Right.
wanted that true intimate connection, and I had to work on me. It
Yes.
wasn't us, it was working on me. And then the same for him, because we always want, every day, we're like, we want a loving, passionate, fun,
Mm-hmm.
like humorous, joyful, significant connection every day. We've
Yeah.
been together since I was 15, guys. So
Yeah.
24 years.
Right.
And every day, especially in my adulthood, I'd say the last 15 years has been super intentional about, I want to be that best version for him, because I want him to be proud of me when I walk down the street. Like I still want to give him goosebumps. I still want him to be like, that's my girl.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
at 65, like that's my girl.
Yeah.
And that's just the vision that I have. And I know everyone has it differently, but I
Mm-hmm.
do know our human needs to want to feel connected to someone
Yeah.
without that feeling like the rug's going to get pulled out of us. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you right now, guys, if you think you're going to get that from just this one night stand or this whatever, you're not. You're going to feel empty and alone. And it's going to
Yeah.
be like a quick thing and then it's going to be gone,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So for us and for me, like that is number one. I believe in marriage. I pray for my husband, for my daughter's future husbands,
Mm-hmm.
like almost every day. I'm like, I pray that they will love her and they love God and they want to
Mm-hmm.
make themselves better. I'm praying for that for them, because I know in our world it's not cool, and
Yeah, that
everybody.
that was actually gonna be my next question. What is that talk like? Because we came up without Instagram, we came up without social
Yeah,
media, and
yeah,
again, when you add on the fact that we almost seem like weird if you're only seeing one guy or if you're
yeah.
actually aspiring to marriage, then you add Instagram to the mix. How do we teach that to a group of young women who could hear what we're saying as adults? But look, I could pick up one of these and I see who's getting the likes. I'm see exactly what's getting the attention, and it's become a world. So what's that talk like with your young ones?
So for my older girls, I will say, because I have almost 15 and almost 13, and I'm very aware of their feelings and emotions as a mom. Like I know their personality types, I know when they're reserved, I know when stuff is bothering them. And so, I'm like, hey, how's everything going or whatever. And
Yeah,
I can tell like if stuff is starting to bother them, whether that's Instagram or friendship circles.
yeah.
And it's just about being aware and knowing your kids, honestly, whether you have social media or not. Yes, I don't like this whole like feeling significant because you get likes, and feeling valued and loved because, oh my gosh, this went viral or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know my kids' hearts. And so if I, as a parent, like their biggest influence in their life, yes, their friendships are definitely influencing them, but I'm still there, whether they push me away or not. Like I am going to be true, and I speak truth into them. So my middle daughter, who's going to be 10, she is going to be such a valiant for the kingdom because she's fiery and she's passionate like me, right? And so she can get really up and she can get really down. And when she's down, I smash it. I am like, that is a lie. So I think so many kids, they see this and they put so much value into that. And I
Right.
just address it like, is that a true or is that lie? Like
Mm-hmm.
if she says, someone said I was fat, I'm like, is that a true or a lie? Look at your body. You hardly have an ounce of fat on you. You're like solid muscle. Like, what are you talking about? That's a lot. Like, I'm very forceful with like turning the enemy's forces against, because for women, it's going to be body image.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be face, like makeup, and like how can I do that, right? It's gonna be feeling like sexy to the opposite sex or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I'm just constantly like reassuring them, especially with body image and stuff, because my daughters are very beautiful. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I want you to be modest, but not so modest that like you feel like you're hiding, because I think that's wrong too, because I don't feel like it's a woman's job to stop a man from lusting. Like,
Right.
you can still see beauty and
Mhm.
boobs. Like, you can, they're beautiful. Like, why do we always have to make it this like nasty thing and you should put a shirt on, and, or, I mean, like cover it up, like up to
Extreme.
here,
You gotta be extreme, right?
but I don't want her butt cheeks hanging out of her jeans either, And so it's like doing, like really balancing that and just knowing that, but just really saying no to like what isn't true.
Right.
And my daughter, she has a boyfriend,
Right.
and we talk about this all the time. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, things like right now are innocent because you guys are both shy and like awkward and this, but like
Yeah.
eventually it's not going to be there. And you
Yeah.
need to know these things.
Yeah.
So just equipping them with the knowledge of that, and that, unfortunately we live in a sinful world. So men are going to look at you like sexual beings.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes them uncomfortable. But I have to open that, not to make them scared, but just to make them aware that
Aware,
like,
right. Mm.
this is happening. And I tell them I pray over their husbands. We jokingly say that, like, oh, pray over your husband. Haha. Like, hope
Yeah.
they can handle your emotion. But like, I literally pray for them, like
Yes.
that they can be in this world right now of craziness and look at my daughters more than just lustfully. Like, they can
Yes.
look at her as a woman, as beautiful and driven or passionate or artistic, and see those things. Because my husband, that's what he saw in me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was blessed at a very early age to see that. Not that we are perfect or, things of that nature, but like we were able to see each other's strengths beyond just that like initial attraction.
Yes, and well, I'm glad you said, because and the real answer to what I propose is there's no one day, one conversation that's going to
No.
fix this issue. It has to be something that you actually make your young kids aware of growing up. I mean, this is something I was actually burnt by this when I was in high school, because I mean, in a world where the majority, a lot of young black boys don't grow up
Mhm.
without a father. I had
Yeah.
what felt like about 25 different fathers. Okay. My actual father in the home, my coaches, my uncles, my teammates, all the teachers. I mean, I had what felt like a lot of different fathers. Yet my high school sweetheart grew up without a father in the household. And that was where I was just filling that void. The reason it didn't work out with me and hers, because I was just filling that void. Now, if I had a man or a parent come to me and say, "Hey, Aswand, what's really the purpose here?" If we were having an honest conversation, I like these, I like the titties, but I knew
Yeah.
in my heart that
Right.
it wasn't something, and I like, this is wrong. But again, a young 15-year-old boy is not saying no to those at all.
Right.
But when you think about it and you let it hurt for a little bit, you realize how you were just filling a void in somebody else's life. And that is the part that I try to tell young kids all the time. It's
Yes.
just, I use the example like this to say, look, did you guys brush it? And this is like a group of young, horny high school boys. I
Yeah.
say, who brushed their teeth this morning? Everybody raises their hand. Okay, if sex ever feels like you're brushing your teeth every morning, then you have ruined something that could have been completely great. If it feels like you're tying your shoe, if it feels as
Yeah.
just monotonous and you're taking the
It's just
person,
supposed to happen.
it's just
That's just
supposed to
what's,
happen.
yeah.
That is the worst thing. And because it's supposed to be something that creates a child, it's supposed to be something that creates the greatest gift in the world. That should be, and if you strip it away from that and you turn it into something that is just filling your little every
Casual pleasure,
casual,
like eating a chocolate cake, it's
I'm
just,
telling you, it's the loneliest, roughest place you can ever be in life. And,
yeah.
meeting people like you is so reassuring that it still exists. It's reassuring that, look, there's still some good, there's people out there that know exactly what I'm talking about and aren't kind of turned like, look, I don't want to hear. This is important stuff, because it's
Important stuff.
going to create so many opportunities. It's going to create business opportunities. Just listen to everything she said throughout this entire episode. She went to school, did the whole thing, yet something in her heart was tugging at her, say, no, I want to help somebody. I don't, and I'm sure, again, your husband was a part of those conversations to say, look, babe, I got you regardless. If you're saying on your heart you don't want to go get your master's, I'm with you. I'm going to be with you regardless. And just having that in your mind, I'm sure gave you a peace of mind, gave you a calm to
Oh
say,
yeah.
let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
again, that was
yeah,
building the relationship,
yeah.
finding that person that was going to do that. And the
Uh-huh.
casual, like sexual relationships are just, it's not going to do it. I'm
It
sorry. And
isn't.
like, I'll
It
go
isn't.
toe to toe with anybody who's doing that because I had those urges too. And like people can look at me and think like, oh, this little small town girl, this Christian, like you could put me in a box all day long. My sister
Right,
was an alcoholic. She was very promiscuous. Me and my husband, like we were not saints. Okay. That's all I'm going
right,
to say. It's a family show. Like,
right.
but and I had those same urges and like, oh, should I
Mhm,
do this? But I always knew like that was such an empty feeling.
mhm.
Like if marriage and connection are supposed to make you like free, but this is what happens. And I'll tell the women on here, okay, who aren't married, that maybe you're
Yes.
doing this. Okay. If you are right now and you're just like living life and just like going out with these guys and having one night stands, or even maybe just boyfriend to boyfriend or whatever, right now the enemy is telling you you need to be promiscuous, you need to show more, you need to do more to feel loved, and that's just a lie. That's just a lie.
Mhm.
And then you're going to get married, and then the enemy's going to just say, oh, all he wants is sex, you can't give it to him, and then there's going to be a wedge and a big gap in your marriage, and pretty soon his eyes are going to start to wander.
Mhm.
And then it becomes the porn, and it becomes the shame, and it becomes the guilt. And it's not because of you. I'm not blaming women for that. That is men's responsibility. But
Mhm.
what I'm saying is, women, let's take ownership of this and say, I hate to say this, but it's like be a church girl in public. And what they say in like a flirt in the
Lady in
bedroom,
the street or a
different
freak
word.
in the
They
bed.
use
Yeah.
a different word, but
Oh,
like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
and there's something to that because when it's the sanctity of marriage, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
anything goes, and you
Yeah.
need to have that, and you have that in you. Like God put that in you for a reason, and it's not anything to be ashamed. But if you have these sexual relations beforehand, and
Mhm.
anybody called you like a floozy, a slut, a whore, and then you become married and you do those things, those words, your mind doesn't know difference. So
Mhm.
it's going to carry that into your relationship of your husband, and you're
Mhm.
going to feel like a slut, a whore. Then you have babies.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, I'm not a whore,
Same,
I'm a mom.
same.
And so
Right.
then you're not going to want to do it. And guess what? The husband loves touch. Like the husband loves intimacy. They love sex, and that's okay. They were wired for that. And then you took it away. So
Mhm.
guess what? They feel lonely. They feel vulnerable. They feel like bamboozled. Like, hey, this girl was like living it up over here, and
Mhm.
then now she's not.
Yeah.
And so we as women need to wrap our
Hate
heads
the
around
cycle,
the
right.
fact that it's okay to be a sexual being with your husband when
Yeah.
you have kids. I
Yeah.
have five, okay? Like I am, my kids always are like, you're so cringy because my husband will like grab my butt or something. And I'm
Mhm.
like, but it's okay because we're married.
Because we're
I
married.
make it very
Right.
clear,
That's
like
not a
we're
problem.
married.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is fine. And
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it, but so many girls are. I see this in marriages. They
Mhm.
were told over here to do this. Like the enemy is whispering to you, like, do this. And then he's over here when you're married, when it's okay, because he knows that good marriages, again, why do I want good marriages, guys? For that solid family. The
Mhm.
enemy knows that good marriages, if they're split apart by porn and
Yeah.
lust, and,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and they're whispering to the husband, like, ooh, look at that picture. It's innocent. You're not cheating, really.
Exactly. Right. Mhm.
And it's this cycle, and we have got to stop it. And we are the only ones that can do this. And it's not shaming anybody. I'm not shaming anybody. I'm not judging you. I get it. I
Mhm.
understand those feelings. But
Mhm.
I promise you, if you invest in that person that you fell in love with and you got married for a reason, and you truly become vulnerable with them,
Yeah.
it will reap so many more rewards and blessings than you could ever imagine. And you will
Yeah.
stop looking at Instagram. You'll stop looking at reality TV because you're living it. Like you're
Yeah.
living your
You
dream
have a
life.
life. You have a life, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pastors, Devon Franklin, he would always say, your vulnerability leads to victory. And I
Yes.
love that. I love that he broke it down in such a short phrase because
Yes.
you are vulnerable. I mean, I feel bad for the person that's waking up to another person every day, wanting to get out of that thing,
Yep.
and you are so stuck in your own way. You've gotten so into it that you couldn't even leave if you wanted to, because now the kids become an excuse. And again, I teach, so I see the results of this every day when you get young girls coming in. I mean, It's one time I went to a high school to do a workshop, and we're watching little high school girls look at sonograms, so like in a celebratory way, not even in a, not even in, oh, I don't know, like in a celebration. Oh my God, he's so cute, or the baby's so cute, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm so glad you gave the listeners that perspective, because it's something we all do want, whether we say it or we not don't. We want to be happily married. That is what you want. All right. All the other stuff that the enemy is throwing at you, you
Yep.
know that it's not right, because it doesn't feel right after. When it's
Yep.
done, and that's what happens. It's this newsflash. It sucks. It just finishes. Okay.
Yep. It's just done
It's just
and
gonna
you're
be just like
done.
one again. There's nothing new to it. You didn't. There's no insight. It's not like you read a good book and now you're gonna. I'm like, it's just
Conquer
finished.
the world. No,
Yeah.
you feel empty. I
It's
told
just
my
done.
husband, I
Right.
said, you can never die, because I would never survive the dating world, because I
Yeah.
couldn't leave that empty feeling. I'd be
Right.
like, now what? Like,
Yeah,
it just
it's empty. There just is nothing
empty.
there. So you're definitely gonna. And again, listeners, it's important that you take this into consideration, because what I like to do is I like to kind of collaborate that and connect that with how well you're doing as a businesswoman, and how well you two are doing with 5 kids as a
Yeah.
business, because of how solid the marriage is first. So,
Yes.
with all that, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just kind of
Yes.
tell people what's next? What do you have coming down the pipeline? How they can get in touch with you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so we are formulating what we call the Legacy Wealth Project. So
Mm-hmm.
we love to help people buy their first income property. That's like first and foremost. But then
Mm-hmm.
how do you keep that legacy wealth in the family? What does that mean? Like if you've built this wealth, if you're an entrepreneur business owner, you don't want to just like it be gone. Whether you have kids now or you eventually see kids in the future, or if you have nieces and nephews, you still don't want it to be squandered, right? Like you need those success and wealth principles. So teaching that layer of incorporating the family, knowing your vision, again, having a vision for your marriage, having a vision for your business, what
Mm-hmm.
that looks like, but building the wealth. So it's like assets versus liabilities. It's tax strategies. It's being very mindful and intentional about your business, not just like throwing it on the wall and seeing what sticks. And so
Right.
we're developing that right now. And so that's the website's Keep Legacy Wealth. We have some freebies on there. And you can join our email list. So if anything, like our free groups or masterminds or
Mm-hmm.
anything coaching of that, inspires you to do it. Because again, I'm not just about like building your business, because there's tactics and strategies and we mastermind and we bring experts in, but like, how can you invest it?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? We've been investors for 20 years. And so it's like, what are the steps for the like least risk and
Right.
handling that? And so that's our new project. And I just really love that. I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast called What Went Wrong: The Untold Stories of Bouncing Back. So
Yeah.
we interview entrepreneurs in like a deep failure, hard time, and like how they got out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
we go really hard on like one story of just like, tell us the nitty gritty, that vulnerable state,
Mm-hmm.
and how can you get out of it? Because I feel like when you hear other people's stories, you get a lot of hope from that. So that's on YouTube, every podcast platform. Check us out. We're new, so we like all the comments and reviews just to get
Nice.
feedback,
There we
what kind
go.
of listeners that you want. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, I was looking at it. It's a couple of them that have been on this show that I saw. So
yeah,
gotta definitely talk about that once we stop recording. Uh
yes, yes,
so
yes.
the final thing I do with all my shows that I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are, let's say you're a young girl, you're watching your, I guess, high school, you're watching your mom struggle, you're watching your dad, work very hard, your sisters are doing this, you're just going through it, but you want better. I want you to pretend the younger you has come into the Zoom room, and just give that young girl some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Your heart is right to do, and stop letting other people's perception of you silence you. You have a voice, and it's a beautiful voice, and the world needs you to step up in your confidence, and you are enough, and your parents and your circumstances do not define you. Go out there and trust God to use your gifts for his kingdom, and you will have blessings like you've never seen.
Mm. Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, I appreciate you, Co. Appreciate the work you do. Keep it up.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to keeping up with your journey. This has
Yes.
been absolutely incredible, and I'm sure you listeners got a ton out of it. If you got to go back and listen to it, just do what you got to do, because this was absolutely incredible. So,
Thank you so
with
much.
all that, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.